Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Sorry that this new mic is probably covering up like 90% of my face. I still need to figure out a better setup to get it going because it's brand new tech, so hopefully my voice sounds a little better for you guys. But today I really wanted to do a video on what kind of graphics card would be best for a mid-range build. And just to preface, when we're talking mid-range build, I think we're more looking at like the 12400F, 5800X, even maybe like a 12600K, but I think that's starting to get into like mid-high range. So this is going to be strictly like just mid-range build, targeted at somebody with like a 12400 or like a 5600X, somewhere around that price range. So when you're looking to get a graphics card for a mid-range build and your budget is like $1,100, I see a lot of people over-index in their CPU. That's why I excluded the 12600K initially, because I see a lot of people over-indexing in their CPU power when they're looking to do a gaming build. A CPU like the 12600K is fantastic, and you can do a multitude of tasks on it, but when you can save almost $100 between the 12400F and 12600K, and that $100 can actually get you an upgrade in your graphics card performance when you're a gamer, I would take the upgrade in graphics card performance over getting a 12600K. Now, if you're doing a mid-range build and you're like video editing, like what I'm doing, or any other kind of tasks, Photoshop, I guess, things like that. There's a whole lot of things that you could be doing outside of just gaming. Then maybe it would be worth getting a 12600K for you. It's all about what your needs are when you're putting a computer together. But like I said, I think I'm going to be targeting mainly gamers here and trying to find the best graphics card we can get for like, around that $1,000, $1,100 point for a gaming build. Moving over to the computer here, I'm going to be using Tech PowerUp and their relative performance benchmarks. If you guys have watched any videos like my channel before, you might be familiar with this website. It's pretty trusted, and it's relatively accurate. I mean, obviously this is just relative performance, so it's like benchmarks over a wide variety of different games, but it should give you a good overall picture, basically, of the card's performance. Obviously, depending on the kind of games you play, you might see a difference in the relative performance here. But I decided to use the 3060 as the base. When you're doing a mid-range build, anything, in my opinion, less than a 3060 starts to not really be a mid-range build. It starts to kind of become like more of a entry-level or a budget build when you go much lower than this, because you're starting to look at like the 6600 or the 3050, or cards that are a generation old. Like you can kind of see the 2070 here, although they almost get the same exact overall performance. The 2070 is an entire generation behind, so it's kind of an older card. So yeah, I just like to use a 3060 as like a baseline for a mid-range build. You could even consider this card maybe a little bit lower end, honestly, but in today's pricing market, it's kind of more of a mid-range card. Looking at the pricing for the 3060, it is still pretty terrible. We have an MSI card, which MSI makes pretty decently built cards for 3070 on here, or $370 on here. And I just like to use Newegg. I mean, I'm sure maybe on Amazon or some other obscure sites you could find them for, 10, 20 bucks cheaper, but I just like to hop on Newegg because I can kind of just find like generally the cheapest card pretty quick. Amazon's filtering system's a bit messed up, so it's kind of hard sometimes. $370 basically is our baseline. So I think that's a pretty terrible price point for the 3060. I think, if you watch channels like mine, once again, you're going to hear a lot of the same sentiment. Let's jump over to the biggest competitor, in my opinion, to the 3060, the 6600 XT. So as you'll see, we have a 12% performance gain going up to the 6600 XT here. And that's decently substantial, and it's absolutely even more substantial when we jump onto Newegg here and we take a look at the pricing. So I would sort it by the lowest price. This is a normal 6600. So 6600 XT right here by ASRock, $330 compared to $370. You're talking $40 difference, and there's a $20 mail-in rebate. So it's actually like $310 after the mail-in rebate. So you could save $60 if you use this mail-in rebate. Rebates are kind of hit and miss. I mean, 90% of the time you are going to end up getting the rebate. I have heard stories of people not getting the money back, but you're going to have to probably wait a while. It takes a couple months for this stuff to process, but still, at the end of the day, it's a cheaper card, and it's actually got a mail-in rebate on it that, you know, even if this didn't go through, you're still saving $40 on a card that performs much better, 12% better. And you know what's even more damning? I'm just showing you the 6600 XT, right? You know what's really crazy? 6650 XT. Really, really small performance game over the 6600 XT. Only 2%. But if we look at the 3060 again here, and we look at the 6650 XT, it's a 14% gain, right? And when you look at the pricing, it's even cheaper than the 6600 XT. $285 for a 6650. So, by the way, I really would not recommend anybody buy this if you are going to go AMD when the 6650 XT is cheaper right now. If I were to guess, they put a lot of these out there, or maybe they're still making them. I mean, I think some of you have heard the story with Nvidia still making 3080 12 gigs because they just have, I don't know exactly what it is, the chiplets basically are already made. They just need to be housed and put all together. So they just have a lot of chiplets, and really you can't, you know, reuse those in anything but what they were manufactured to be made into. So if I were to guess, this is like the best thing that AMD can make with whatever chiplet design they're using for the 6650 XT. So instead of making a bunch of 6600 XTs or like RX 6600s, they're just making a bunch of 6650s. I think that's what's happening, but could be wrong. They could just be sitting on a lot of stock because this came out when crypto mining was starting to drop, I believe. You could quote me if I'm wrong, but anyways, moral of the story here is we are looking at, what is that, like almost $100 between the two. Like, if you remove this MSI card, they're going for like $380. I guess this $15 off one, but yeah, you're almost talking. Oop, my bad. Meant to go to 660. Yeah, you're almost talking like you're talking like $95 on most 3080 or 3060s. You're going to be saving money on. That is absolutely insane. Like, I don't know why anybody would buy this card outside of the fact that it's just the Nvidia name. 6650 is like mid-range king right now, if you ask me. This is an incredible card. I put a computer together for my younger brother, and I put a 6600 XT in it back when the prices were first dropping because he really needed a new computer. And I was like, look, you've been waiting for forever. Prices are going to get lower, but I was like, just bite the bullet. I think it was like $500 for the 6600 XT when I had him get it. He was like, just bite the bullet and just get it. It's going to feel bad like after 6 months or so, but I mean, he wanted something right then and there. I mean, he wouldn't be gaming for 6 months. He lost like what, $200-$300 or something. I mean, it sucks, but at least he was able to game at the time. He uses the 6600 XT, and it is a great card. He hasn't had any problems with it, and he's able to play all the games he wants to play at like the max settings, 1080p. He has a 144 hertz monitor. He frequently is able to reach that number on most games, even maxed out. And then he also plays Valorant and stuff like that too, and he gets plenty high FPS. Way more than what he needs, honestly. But yeah, this is bang for my buck. This is the card. Now, if you have a little more budget, perhaps, and you're really diehard Nvidia, and you're like, well, I'm just going to get 3060 because it's Nvidia and I want an Nvidia card. I urge you to save up a little more and get a 3060 Ti if you have to have Nvidia. 3060 Ti is a fantastic card. I used it in my personal build for a really long time until I upgraded to a 3070. And honestly, between the 3070 and the 3060 Ti, I didn't feel that much of a difference. And like, I do a lot of 1080p gaming because my normal monitor is 240 hertz, and I like to play games like League of Legends and Counter-Strike, so I wanted something with a high refresh rate. So I didn't notice that much of a difference between the cards, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm playing at 1080p. But that being said, when I jumped from the 3060 to the 3060 Ti, I felt it. And as you can see here, it's a 25% performance gain. It does almost as much as a 2080 Super, which was like the flagship card of the generation of the 20 series generation. And the interesting thing about the 3060 Ti, guys, that some people might not know about, is it is not, if you know how binning works, basically when these, cards are, when these chiplets are manufactured, they're all going to perform a little bit differently. That's just how it is by design. There's going to be little errors in manufacturing. Sometimes the silicon just doesn't do exactly, it doesn't, take electricity, or I'm not an engineer, but basically, by the way that they're built, they're all just going to perform a little bit differently, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about that. So they'll bin them, they'll test them, and they'll bin them into different, performance categories. So the 3070, right, is what that chiplet is supposed to run at. That is their expected performance. Sometimes they overperform a little bit, and you get a 3070 Ti. Sometimes they'll underperform, and what they decided to do is they decided to make that into the 3060 Ti. So it is not an overperforming 3060. It is an underperforming 3070, which I like that a lot more than getting just like an overclock, or not overclocked, just an overperforming 3060 chiplet. So you basically have an underperforming 3070. That's why you get so much extra performance out of this compared to like the 3060. So, I mean, when you look at the pricing for that, that's a 3060. 3060 Ti. $450. I'd probably go with, I don't know. I guess both those cards are pretty decent. Anyways, we're basically looking at like $450. Looking back at 3060, you're looking at like $370. So seriously, if you're putting together a mid-range build, figure out a way in your budget to get an extra, $30, more like $70, $80. So in your build, figure out a way to budget in an extra $80, whether you just spend an extra $80 or you like cut down certain components in your build to get an extra $80. I really urge you, it's just $80. I know that sometimes $80 sounds like a lot, but honestly, the performance gain you get for $80 is crazy. Please do not buy the 3060 for the price that it's at right now, when you can spend less than $100 extra and you can get a 3060 Ti and it's going to perform 25% better. If you have to have Nvidia. If you don't have to have Nvidia, literally just buy a 6650 XT. If you have to have Nvidia, get a 3060 Ti. You got to do it. I just don't want to see anybody buying these 3060s. They're not that great of a card. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is the 6700 XT. Because once again, if you're looking for a little bit of a performance jump and you have room in your budget, I would probably recommend getting the 6700 XT over the 3060 Ti if you're just strictly gaming. There's things that the 3060 Ti does better than the 6700 XT, but if you're just strictly a gamer and you're not making content, you're not streaming, you're not doing videos, 6700 XT over here, $390. That's what? $60 you save. So you basically can save $60 for a card that performs 2% better overall. I mean, they really do perform very similarly. So between the 3060 Ti and the 6700 XT, I can see why maybe you'd still want to go Nvidia, just because Nvidia, you know, video encoders and stuff. But honestly, if you, like I said, just strictly gaming, 6700 XT is really great. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this chart here. I really just wanted to, you know, pound in on these prices and on these numbers. I need people to avoid getting the 3060. It is way too overpriced. With all that being said, guys, I think that's going to do it for this video. You know, just I guess to do a quick recap, don't get baited by the naming schemes. I know the 3060 has the same naming scheme as the 1060, and when you think back on the 1060, you're like, that card was incredible. Did everything you needed it to do at a really nice cost. I'm going to be honest, 3060 does not live up to its name. Avoid it. Don't get the 3060. I see it in way too many people's builds. If the cost comes down even more, down to like what the 6600 XT is, I still don't think we'd have a different conversation. It needs to be lower than the 6600 XT. I just don't think it's as good of a card. It just isn't. The 12 gigs of VRAM is a total gimmick. So avoid the 3060 for any of your mid-range builds unless you're video editing and you really want to put that extra cost into your CPU. Then that's the only case that I think it's worth it. And like I said, the Nvidia encoders and stuff like that for your video rendering and stuff, it's probably going to be a little better on Nvidia, so 3060 is fine for like a cheaper video editing rig. It's actually what I did with my old 3060. I put it in my work computer, which is what I do all my video editing on. If you're doing a mid-range build, avoid getting like the 12600K and go with the F SKUs as well, because when you're a gamer, you don't really need the K SKU and you don't really need the integrated graphics. So get the F SKU, save the money. Also, if you're going with the 12400F, look at 3060 Ti, 6600 XT if you don't have the budget, or even the 6700 XT if you aren't totally married to Nvidia and you need to save a few bucks to, you know, put something extra into your build. Like I said, if you want like an SSD upgrade of some sort, or, you know, maybe you want 32 gigs of RAM for some reason, you could like probably use the extra $60 savings to put it into RAM. I mean, there's a whole lot of things you can do with $60. I won't say that getting the 3060 Ti instead of the 6700 XT would be like terrible, because it wouldn't be. I really liked the 3060 Ti. It's a fantastic card. I understand why you might want to go with Nvidia. I'm just saying that the AMD stuff, when it's cheaper and it literally performs almost exactly the same, it might be worth just saving the money and going with AMD. Especially with Nvidia's recent practices on their newest releases and trying to keep graphics card prices up. Maybe you might feel like that's a bit scummy. And maybe giving that money over to their competitor will make them think twice about screwing over the consumer. But once again, if you're married to Nvidia, get the 3060 Ti. If you're on a budget, get the 6600 XT. And if you're just looking to save a few bucks, not married to Nvidia, I would say get the 6700 XT for a mid-range build. I think that covers all of our bases. Sorry this is a bit long-winded. I just really wanted to get some of the points across that I wanted to get. I hope it didn't sound extremely rambly. I wasn't going off a script, just going off of my own personal experience and, you know, some of the other reviewers I've seen online and a lot of people I know sending me PC part picker builds, and so many of them have a damn 3060 in it. It was starting to get to me. I felt like I had to make a video about it. Just, you know, put something out there about, please don't stop buying this card. Same with like the 3050. Like, don't get a 3050, don't get a 3060. Just avoid both of those cards. All the other Nvidia stuff like 3070, 3060 Ti, sure. Even if an AMD stuff is a little bit cheaper, you're playing the Nvidia premium. I get it. To stop rambling, I'm going to cut it off here. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I am genuinely curious to see if you agree with my opinion on some of this stuff. Please rate or give it a thumbs up. I keep saying rate, but ratings are gone. Ratings have been gone for years. I say rate on all these videos. Give me a thumbs up, please. It helps with the algorithm, and I'm a newer, growing channel. I'd really, like the additional help if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe if you did like the stuff I'm putting out. I try to put out as much as I can. I don't have a set schedule yet, but, maybe I can start doing stuff in the future if I start getting enough traction. But yeah. Thanks for everything, guys. I hope to see you in another video. We love the lawn mowing guy. Thank you.